Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video here. So I wanted to talk about a Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live idea here. And this is regarding Carl, because obviously, Carl is a big character on the show. And I do have some videos focused on Carl that I do want to get into. And it's because, the Rick and Michonne show's coming out in like 3 months now, less than 3 months now. And so I kind of wanted to just like talk about just the character and, talk about Rick and Carl's like last moments together and certain things with that character anyways. I wanted to go back and explore some of those moments and just talk about, whatever. And so that's why in this video, I wanted to really focus on, could we see Chandler Riggs in The Ones Who Live? Could there be something with Carl at some point here in season 1, or maybe this is the only season, or if they're doing a season 2, could he show up there or whatever's going to happen here? So I wanted to talk about that here. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live will be premiering in 90 days exactly. So we are exactly, we're not exactly 3 months away. I guess 3 months was 2 days ago on the 25th, but we're 90 days away at this point here. So yeah, obviously a very exciting time to be a Walking Dead fan. And I can't wait for that trailer. Right now, that's sort of all anyone's going to be talking about, right? Is like, I feel like right now, the one date that we can sort of have in mind would be like Christmas. Like there's certain times when I think they're going to likely release this trailer. I don't think they're going to release it at the end of January. That is way too late. But like late December, early January, I think it makes sense. You could release it a week before Christmas. Just somewhere around there, I think is when they're likely going to be releasing this trailer. And right now we're just going to have to wait and see, obviously. They could literally do it for New Year's Day, right? Or New Year's Eve. Like it depends, but it's going to be somewhere around there, I'm expecting. Like it's just, you can't wait until February. Like by the time it's February 1st, we're going to have seen the trailer already for sure. I'm pretty confident in that. There's probably going to be other trailers at that point that come out, but like for sure the general trailer we'll have seen at that point. So it's just in the next month or two here is when it's going to be coming out. It's likely going to be in about a month's time. It could be a little bit before that, but right now we're on trailer watch basically. So any new news that we do get, I will obviously talk about. And yeah, that's just sort of the excitement right now. And that's why I wanted to get into this question here and I guess get your guys' thoughts on this. But do you think we could see Carl appear in The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live? And the reason why this is really interesting is just because obviously who Carl is to Rick in general. And also I think just, how sad it was and how negative it was for Walking Dead fans when Carl left the show. Like it was just something that, and I'm going to do a video talking about that whole situation and all that, but it was just something that like obviously for fans, people were just so upset with because it just felt like it was so unnecessary. And people are still upset about that to this day. Because if Carl was still around, like you could really argue that The Walking Dead could last a very, very long time. And I'm not saying Judith couldn't lead The Walking Dead. Like she could definitely lead The Walking Dead, but there's just, there's a legacy element to Carl where he was very much a legacy character. Like he was there from season 1. He was Rick's like first motivation. And there's something about originality and like being just a part of the first group that was there in season 1 that fans really like. And I think Judith could do an amazing job. She was there from season 3, she was there technically like early on. She was a part of the whole Lori, Shane and Rick drama. There's stuff that goes back to the very beginning. There's stuff there, but like there's just something different with Carl. Carl was there from the very, very beginning and he was Rick's main motivation right from the beginning. And obviously that's something that most fans remember. Like people remember when Rick first found Carl, and I think it was episode 2 or 3. I think it might have been 3. Like it was something that was just so insane to see. And so obviously Carl's death, just like it really hurt a lot of people because if he was still alive right now, like the stuff that you can do with that story would be just absolutely incredible. Like if you could actually have Carl still on the show, to have Carl be there throughout the Whisper War arc, just the early on Whisper arc, some of the storylines that he could have had during the Commonwealth and everything. Like there's just a lot of stuff there that obviously is very, very frustrating. And I just think that if you could bring him back into Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, and it was more of a positive scene and more of I don't know how you would do it. Like that's the thing, right? How could you do it? Like you would have to make it make sense story-wise, but I just think doing it and having it more in a positive way, I think could be, really amazing for Walking Dead fans just to sort of see that. And, because Rick's final episode, like it never had everyone that he wanted in it. And I know that there were certain characters that were supposed to be there, this and that, and I think, could have shown up, but there were scheduling issues. And I think Carl should have been a character that, should have been there. And maybe they're saving it for now. I know one thing that Angela Kang mentioned a long time ago. I believe it was her, maybe it was Gimple. I can't remember who exactly mentioned it, but there was discussions of like, you know, if it was somebody else like Carl or Lori or someone, like if Rick would have saw them, like it would have been one of those things where Rick might have just like went with them, right? Because his hallucinations in season 9 were very much like the people there were really pushing him to like to wake up and you need to go and do this, you need to do this, right? And so if he saw Lori or Carl, like he might have been like, okay, I'm gonna stay here kind of thing. Like he might have wanted to stay just there, and then maybe that results in his death kind of thing, right? And so he saw the people that obviously meant a lot to him that could just be inspiration to him to be like, no, go find your family is there. And so I think it makes sense story wise. I think I like that. It actually makes a lot of sense. But I also think at this point now you could also kind of switch that a little bit and do something a little better, just because obviously it's been years since Carl's been off the show, but you could do something to make this really make sense story wise. And obviously, Carl couldn't return in any way where he's a part of the story. And I feel like some people might take this video that way, that I'm meaning that. No, obviously not. Like, that would be insane. But you could do something like a hallucination scene. You really could. I wouldn't want a dream sequence or a flashback or anything like that, because those are kind of meaningless, I feel like, at this point, because it's very much like, I don't know. It's nothing that's that exciting because it's something that already happened. And it's like, okay, that's a cool scene to see, but it's not anything, you know, regarding the story and all that. And I think a hallucination scene, much like, you know, what happened in Rick's final episode, I think would be, and also I don't even know if we can say that's Rick's final episode anymore because it technically wasn't, right? But you know what I mean. So I think doing something like that would be really, really great. And I think could be something that fans would really love. You know, like imagine if it was a scene where Rick was like, I don't know if he's like close to dying or there's something going on with Major General Beale. There's like this epic final fight or something's happening. And, you know, he has this like sort of dream sequence or like this, whatever happens to him. And he sees Carl and Carl is talking to him and giving him like this motivational speech or saying, you need to do this, you need to do this and that. And it's just sort of like this last thing that like it wakes him up and does whatever. And he's able to like defeat the CRM or whatever. Right. Again, I don't know if this show is going to get a season 1 only or if it's going to be like a 2-season thing or 3-season thing. So maybe it's not going to happen right away in these next 6 episodes. Maybe it's later on. I have no idea like what this show is going to be. We're going to find out obviously once we watch it, but I think that would be really amazing because then you're ending Rick and Carl's story with something a little bit more inspirational. And I also think it would be pretty epic to have Carl serve as motivation for Rick again, because obviously he has always served as motivation for Rick, right? Like it's just, he's always been that sort of fuel to keep Rick going the entire time, right from the beginning. It was his son, Carl. It was like, I need to keep going. I need to keep fighting and fighting and fighting. And I feel like that's a story for all parents, right? All parents with kids, you just keep going for your kids. You just keep going. And that's the story of Rick Grimes. And I think that's why Andrew Lincoln kind of wanted to leave the show as well. You know, I think that's a big part of it. I know he had Judith, but it was like, in terms of a story, like in terms of the characters, obviously in real life, there's no difference at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like, in terms of if you're just writing a story for characters in like this made up world kind of thing, like it just makes sense that once you lost Carl, that you're like, you know, that's such a big thing for Rick to have lost Carl, that it makes sense that you would kind of end his story around that point. So that's probably why he wanted to kind of be done with the character. Obviously, and there's other things in his life as well. And so I just think that changing that a little bit here and making it so that Carl is still motivation. And that's the one thing that I want to see in this show, is I want to see Rick talk about Carl a lot. Like, that was the thing that I really liked about early on in season 9 was that Carl was still very much in Rick's life. Like, he still thought about Carl all the time. He talked about Carl. He got into that argument with Daryl, and the whole thing was about Carl. Like, everything in season 9 that he tried to do in terms of keeping the Saviors and everyone, like, working together was because of what Carl wanted. Like, he still thinks about Carl to this day. And I know for fans, even, like, right now and focusing on the ones who live, you know, a lot of us just focus on Michonne, Judith, and RJ. But like Carl is still very much there. And I really do hope to see that very much alive in Rick to this day, that he still thinks about Carl every single day, that it's just like literally not a single day goes where he doesn't think about him. And like, I want him referenced on the show a lot. And I think fans would really, really like that. And that's why I think it'd be really amazing to see Carl in the last episode or something like that. A dream sequence of any kind, I think people would really, really like. So that's why I wanted to talk about this idea in here, because I feel like a lot of us forget about Carl because obviously he died a long time ago, and it's been so long. And I think that, you know, when you really look at just the scenes that we've had of Rick, he thinks about Carl all the time, and he is still very much in Rick's life, and he's still very much a part of Rick's story. And so I just hope that in The Ones Who Live, his presence is felt very much. And it would be so cool to actually see him in a hallucination scene. If Carl could somehow play a role in Rick's story in some way here in this show, I think it would be honestly absolutely amazing. So let me know your thoughts on Carl and Rick and just that whole story. Would you like to see him in a hallucination scene, or would you just prefer it to be just sort of put to rest at this point? Post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.